Chapter 25 to 26. The internship system of UA is a curious thing. On one hand, it gives students the opportunity to experience how hero agencies work and function, and on the other it allows agencies to scout potential talents in the next generation. In a way, UA has perfected a way that allows students to get a head start on their hero careers. I too benefited from this system. My internship with All Might was all the rage a year ago, and from that single week stems most of my success as a pro hero. Now it's my time to play the mentor to two hero aspirants, Mirio Togata and Hitoshi Shinso. Originally it would not have been permitted for Shinso to take part in the internship program, and that would have been okay, because Aizawa had already staked a claim on him. No one is stupid enough to go against Aizawa in this matter, but I managed to talk him into it. While undoubtedly Shinso would be a terror with a capture weapons like Aizawa, I couldn't help but feel that he could do better with a short sword in hand. I've seen how good he was after a month of tutelage under Izuku, who is still merely a novice in swordsmanship. Shinso has a talent for bladed weapons, and even with his somewhat OP quirk, he isn't like Aizawa in that he can level the playing field against most opponents. No, he needs something more than just a smart piece of cloth to get him through his career as a hero. To that end, I offered my services to teach him swordsmanship. I have to say that Shinso is an incredible student. He catches on quickly, and his movements are efficient. Now if only I could correct this attitude of his to be hyper-defensive in combat, I could call his training a true success. You need to pay attention to the changing battlefield, I said. Shinso glared at me as he rose from the floor and took his ready position. I couldn't help but sigh at the sight of it. It wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, it was just so defensive that it was nearly useless in a real fight. I took my own ready position with my Bakken. Come on, attack me, I said. You aren't going to attack me again, what are you, chicken? Bit back Shinso. I snorted, and as I went to reply, I felt an intrusion in my mind similar to a genjutsu. A quick flare of chakra was all it took to rid myself of the foreign influence. That isn't going to work, Shinso, I said as I launched in a lightning-fast attack. In 3 moves, he was already on the ground and his Bakken was in my hand. Damn it! How are you so fast? I raised an eyebrow. How are you so slow? That was my base speed. It was true. I hadn't used a single drop of chakra in this fight. Heck, I even went as far as to strap on weights that will counteract the passive effects on my body that chakra has. You need to stop relying so much on your quirk, Shinso, I said. He looked at me confused. But isn't the training that we're doing now supposed to help me be a better fighter with my quirk? He asked. I looked at him. Is that what he thought we were doing? No, the point of all this is to help you get a better grasp on swordsmanship. This is meant to add another tool to your arsenal and help when mere hand-to-hand combat and your quirk is not sufficient. He was still unconvinced. Tell me, would you have been able to beat the girl Form 1B in the sports festival without your sword? No. Exactly. Stop looking at this training as something that will help your quirk. Your focus on your quirk is a fallacy that can be your downfall. In fact, it has been the downfall of many heroes in this age, where quirks are viewed as the answer to all the world's problems, I said. Shinso nodded and went on the attack. I defeated him in 2 strikes. After I pulled him up, I went over his stances and techniques, explaining when and where to use them and how to do so. Training Shinso is a lot of work, but it's not as much as it had been with Izuku. Don't get me wrong, Izuku is an excellent hand-to-hand combatant with a healthy dose of long-range ability for good measure, it's just that he's shit with weapons. Not that I can blame him for that, everyone has different preferences when it comes to combat, but I did make sure that he was at least passable in a sword fight should he ever need it. I left Shinso to rehearse the katas for the technique I just showed him. I hope that he will become competent enough to switch to sparring with each other soon. Just practicing won't do his reflexes any good, and they are already terrible. As I passed through the door to the training room, I spawned a shadow clone to stand by it and inform me should Shinso want something or if someone else entered the room without my permission. Secrecy was key to Shinso's success as an underground pro hero, and I can never fully trust the people that work for me at Might Tower. Because the agency is so big and a center for one of the biggest hero factions in existence, there is a lot of traffic throughout the lower levels, and I can never be too sure if the lower ranks of the agency aren't on someone's payroll as a spy, or if they would simply spill info to a news station for a large sum of cash to make their life better. It was a sad fact, but one that I had to take into account nonetheless. Still, this situation did come with a silver lining. I walked out of the elevator I had previously taken and headed for one of the training rooms on the lower floors. As I entered, I was treated to an amusing sight. Mirio was fighting against one of my clones while another, hinged as an old man dressed like the stereotypical mystical sensei that one would expect to find in a mountain somewhere, was pointing out the flaws in his technique. Speaking of such figures, I should really go see what old man Jian is doing these days, and if he's given up on that ridiculous codename of custodian, not that its meaning was wrong. That man was easily one of the strongest martial artists still alive, having been born at the time where there wasn't even the notion of quirks around. It's ironic that, as he trained as a Buddhist monk, he manifested the quirk prime life. While he does continue to age, albeit at a much slower rate, he's still as strong as he was in his prime. I should know, after all he kicked my butt more times than I can count when I was a kid. Even to this day, without chakra enhancement I couldn't stand a chance of beating him in a pure taijutsu match. Anyways, back to Mirio. In the 3 days he's been here, he's made quite some progress honing his combat skills. Having to deal with an opponent that used battle precognition made sure of that. He learned to be unpredictable, though I'm not sure how well this would work against someone like Night Eye, but it was more than sufficient to give my shadow clone a run for its money. Of course, it wasn't using chakra actively since that would be against this exercise's point, but still it was an impressive feat for what was basically an ordinary human teenager. He was progressing nicely. I could already see that his form had less holes than before, and if he could keep up this level of intense training for a month or two, I'm sure that he would be a pain to fight against even for someone like Yorimusha. That man was a monster in battle. Honestly, if he had wider appeal, he could very well breach the top 5. But then again, when you look like Santa cosplaying as a Japanese warlord, I suppose there aren't many parents out there that would want their kids to look up at such a person. Not that I'm better, mind you, it's just that I managed to twist the public's image of me to that of a young prince going through the trials necessary to attain the throne of his father. Don't look at me like that, people think crazy shit up all the time, honestly, I blame it all on Hawks. // The door to my office hissed open and I entered. As soon as it shut behind me and the seal on it glowed blue as confirmation of its activation, I allowed myself to slouch and collapse on the campaign bed that I had hidden away behind my desk. Another day, another headache, as the saying goes. Actually, it was mid-afternoon, but I didn't care. I was up all night tracking down a lead for Night Eye. Normally I would have let Mirio take the lead and just stick a shadow clone on his tail to monitor and intervene should it be necessary. Unfortunately, this particular person was a high-level broker in the underworld, mostly specializing in drugs and quirk and human trafficking. From what I noticed from doing raids against several safe houses and distribution points is that most of the human trafficking revolves around quirkless kids. Mostly pre-teens, though I did see a few teenagers here and there. Not surprising considering the stigma and dare I say it shame concerning the quirkless. Japanese society hasn't changed that much from what it used to be in the 21st century. Even now there are reports of exhaustion-related deaths. Any family with a quirkless child was doomed. Most often than not, the parents would split up and the child, usually around the age of 6, would either live in an abusive household or be abandoned at an orphanage somewhere. From there, it was easy pickings for any thug involved with human trafficking, and these kids would end up abused in the worst ways and eventually disposed of before they reached 20. No, I won't let Mirio dirty his hands with matters such as these, because I'm sure that it would break him. In this age, children aren't taught the heroic legends of old. The ancient tales of the Iliad and the Odyssey are relegated to those few still interested in history. The rich folklore of Japan has lost its oral tradition as well. I should know, when I was young I used to tell Izuku stories before bed. I would tell him of ancient heroes and even regurgitate the plot of some movies and TV series I used to watch that are no longer available nowadays. The people of this era are weak and fickle things. Even blessed with all the power their quirks give them, there are no more true heroes around. There is no one you can point to and say that their name would go down in history, that their legend will be passed down from parent to child like the tales of ancient heroes. I drifted off to a dreamless slumber only to be awakened a few hours later by my phone. Without looking at the screen, I answered. Hello, you've reached the personal number of the pro hero Rikudou, how may I help you? I asked in a flat tone. Nissan. There are nomas in Hosu, yelled out the voice of my brother. In an instant I jackknifed it into a sitting position and flooded my body with chakra, using it as makeshift adrenaline. I was up in an instant. What? I shouted. One just crashed through the train and Gran Torino took off after him, but Ida isn't answering, and I'm worried and dash. Enough. I said. Izuku fell silent. Is there a policeman near you or something? I asked. Yes, there's a wounded hero and a guard tending to him, said Izuku. Put me on speaker, I said. I waited for a moment to gather my thoughts and spoke. To any law enforcement and pro-heroes in the vicinity, this is the pro-hero Rikudou, identify yourselves. I demanded. A squeak was heard and the phone was fumbled around a bit. Why yes sir, I am Hiroteki Yamabushi, I work as a security guard on the train that was attacked, came the strained voice of a security guard. You'll do. Now listen up, I hereby grant permission to one Izuku Midoriya and any other Class 1A students with him to engage in battle and to use their quirks in defense of others and themselves in accordance with Act 3. Subsection 4B of the Pro-Hero Legislative Code. Anyone who hears this announcement may be liable to be summoned as witnesses in court. Is that understood? Why yes sir, Crystal, replied the stuttering voice of the guard. Good enough. Izuku, go and find your friend. Engage only if necessary, I'm on my way, I said. I could hear some cheers in the background as I closed the connection and went to don my armor. Every minute was precious and I couldn't waste any time. Izuku did not hesitate. As soon as his brother was finished giving his proclamation, he flooded his body with chakra and allowed one for all to the it over and bring forth that wellspring of power that turned All Might from a quirkless idealist to the man he was today. Electric green lightning erupted across his body and with a single push, he was off, leaving behind an odd crowd and a trail of green light. The streets were in chaos, but he powered through, running across walls and leaping from building to building, all in the hopes to find his friend. Tenya, yelled a voice. Izuku instantly locked towards the source of that shout and his eyes widened as he saw Manuel, Ida's mentor. His eyes widened even further as he saw the destruction the three Nomu were wreaking. Shit, what do I do? I can't afford a long drawn-out battle with those Nomu, but the heroes over there are useless. Please tell me I didn't forget to pack the scroll. Izuku stopped on the roof of one of the nearby buildings and began to search his pockets. He breathed a sigh of relief as he found the scroll he was looking for. Putting on a determined face, he jumped. At the apex of his jump, Izuku drew 3 kunai from his pouch and threw them at the Nomu, one for each. At first everyone was confused, but Izuku landed soon after and unfurled the scroll on the ground. Several quick hand seals later, he slapped down his palm on the center of the scroll. Huinjutsu, Chains of Heaven, yelled Izuku. From each of the thrown kunai, a green circle spun into existence beneath the Nomu and then connected with a line of chakra to the main scroll. From there, another larger circle spun around the scroll, this time golden in color, and from it were launched heavy chains at the Nomu. The Nomu tried to avoid them, but the chains were too fast. They pierced the limbs of the Nomu and wrapped around them, binding them completely. Seeing this, Izuku took a metal spike from his belt and slammed it down into the center of the seal. There, that should do it. I have to find Ida quickly, before my chakra drains completely, though Izuku as he got up and sped off on hearing of the cries to wait that were raising from the heroes he left behind. Damn it. The road from Might Tower to Hosu was long and I didn't dare waste the chakra necessary for flight at near Mach speed. I was stuck with running. Not that I was much slower this way. Clad in blue lightning indicative of the lightning chakra armor, I sped past cars towards Hosu. I just pray I make it in time. Still, Nomu? What the heck was the League and All for One doing? This wasn't rational. There's no way that All for One would waste resources just to mindlessly attack a city, unless... No, this wasn't AFO's hand at play. This was definitely that man-child Shigaraki. I did theorize that Shigaraki may try to bring Stain into his group, but the attacks of these Nomu were not targeted. From what I could make out from the radio chatter in my ear, the Nomu, 5 in number, were all wreaking as much havoc as possible without any set target in mind. No matter, I would deal with them later. It's more than likely that Stain has had a fallout with the League and this is just some sort of twisted pissing contest started by Shigaraki because things didn't go his way. Such a thing would not be out of character. Even so, this pissing contest was costing thousands in propriety damage and more than a few human lives. I shook my head. I can't afford to have rage and anger cloud my judgment. For better or worse, Izuku was there and he was powerful enough to beat the Noma that stood in his path. From what I heard, Endeavor managed to cook one alive and they seem to be reacting slower than the ones I fought at USJ. This just further supports my hypothesis that this attack is just Shigaraki throwing a temper tantrum. I need to get there faster. My chakra flared and even more condensed lightning-natured chakra was shunted from my coils to my muscles, skin and nerves. // Spreading his senses out, Izuku tried to locate his wayward classmate. Damn it, NII-san's still better than me at this, and I'm supposed to be the one with the OP sensory ability, yelled Izuku in his head. What he was trying to do is make the nature energy from one for all connect with the ambient nature energy of the world. Of course, the quirk was quite stubborn and would not lend its power so easily. Izuku knew from what his brother told him that he should be able to eventually spread his senses out across the entirety of Japan and have such a sensory acuity that even Ragdoll's search quirk would be rendered near useless when compared to him. Of course, that was just the theory, and so far he'd been unable to actually put it into practice. In the end, he was forced to rely on his brother's tried and true method of chakra sensing. That wouldn't be so bad if it didn't require a shit ton of chakra to cover the area needed for his search. Damn it, who the hell made so many back alleys across the city? Honestly, it's like someone was waving a flag in the face of all the villains please do crimes here. I swear I'm going to have a talk with the city designer later, raged Izuku in his head. Just as he was about to stop and send out the chakra pulse for the sensing technique, his passive senses came across the very familiar signature of Ida. Found you. Launching himself in the air, Izuku managed to arrive just on time to save Ida from being stabbed through the back of the neck by a sword. Midoriya, yelled Ida. Can't you move? Get out of here already, yelled back Izuku. I can't move, he must have done something when he cut me. But what are you doing here, said Ida. Hee more fakes came a voice from the alleyway. Izuku turned his attention back to the threat at hand and settled in a fighting stance, drawing a kunai from his pouch. Hero killer Stain, replied Izuku coldly. The hero killer cocked his head to the side and looked at Izuku strangely. You have nothing to do with this, yelled Ida. What? Asked Izuku, not taking his eyes off Stain for a single second. This is my fight, my duty to avenge my brother, don't you dare, but in dash, yelled Ida. Shut up, yelled back Izuku, cutting Ida off. What the hell is wrong with you? You must have hit your head or something, because that's not how a hero thinks. When Stain heard this, his grin widened. You understand, don't you, inheritor of all mights will, he said. And what the hell do you want, shot back Izuku. I just want to cleanse the world of fakes like these two, surely you can see that. Their corrupt and false ways stain the good name of the true heroes everywhere, said Stain. And by that you mean only All Might? Asked Izuku. Stain looked surprised. Don't be so surprised, I researched all I could find about you Kaizo Makaguro the moment I found out about what you did to Ida's brother, Ingenium, said Izuku. Then you understand, my will, my duty, my conviction, said Stain as he took a step forward. I do, but that doesn't mean that I won't bring you down right here and now, said Izuku. Stain stopped and stared. Don't you dare, he's mine, yelled Ida. Be silent. I thought that you had more brains in that empty head of yours than to go up against a serial killer without even a serious plan, yelled back Izuku. Those that stand in my way will die, declared Stain. So be it, replied Izuku. In an instant, Izuku was upon him. Sparks were shed as Izuku's kunai bounced off Stain's hastily raised sword. The blow was of such force though, that it broke through Stain's guard. Without wasting a second, Izuku pressed his advantage and tried to get a good hit in on the hero killer. Unfortunately, Izuku's original assessment on Stain's martial prowess was wrong and the latter managed to catch Izuku's fist with his offhand and bring down his word with the other in an attempt to kill Izuku. The blade was stopped dead in its tracks by Izuku's kunai, settling the two in a lock. You're good, who taught you how to fight? Asked Stain. Izuku didn't reply but instead he grabbed onto the wrist of Stain's sword hand and pulled down on his hands, causing his head to come smashing down in Izuku's knee. Now dazed, Stain was kicked into a wall with enough force to shatter it. That, you don't need to know, said Izuku as he stalked the hero killer. He knew that the was not out, even if the kick had broken a couple of Stain's ribs. That was proven true when a moment later, Stain re-engaged Izuku. Izuku blocked his strike, but was unable to prevent Stain from disengaging and throwing a knife at him. Thinking it was meant for him, Izuku dodged. Moments later his eyes widened as he deduced that the knife was not aimed at him, but at Ida. Without a second thought Izuku folded a hand seal and was instantly replaced with the knife, leaving the knife to fall harmlessly to the ground. Rising from his crouched position, Izuku glared at Stain. Really now? Attacking non-combatants, do you not have a single shred of pride within that disgusting soul of yours? TCH, I need not take any pride in my work, said Stain. That's not what I meant, growled Izuku. Midoriya, yelled another voice. Izuku's head immediately snapped to the source of the sound and to his great surprise he saw Shoto at the entrance of the alleyway. That was all Stain needed as he charged Izuku, only to be cut off by a huge wall of ice. Seeing his opening, Izuku picked up Ida and pulled back to the entrance of the alleyway. What's happening to the seal? It's draining my chakra faster than it should. If this goes on, I will have to sever the connection to the seal matrix through Izuku. With his prey gone, Stain turned his attention back to Native, the hero he originally intended to kill. Just before he reached him and killed him, Izuku appeared, cutting off his access to him. "TCH, annoying brat," said Stain as he was forced to dodge a barrage of kicks and punches. "My strength is diminishing and one for all isn't helping much either. Something must be seriously wrong for the seal to draw that much chakra." "Nisan, hurry up," thought Izuku. Right behind Izuku came Shoto, who gingerly picked up Native and began bedding back to the small ice fortress he made around Ida. "No," cried Stain. In a feat of extraordinary gymnastics, Stain twisted around and kicked Izuku away as he went into a dead sprint for Native and Shoto. Just as he was about to reach the two, Izuku yet again appeared between Stain and his target. Deciding to be proactive for once, Izuku caught the sword by the blade and broke it. That act stunned Stain just enough for Izuku to be able to shove his fist in his stomach so hard that Stain was instantly launched back and smashed against a hastily erected wall of ice. Deciding that discretion was the better form of valor, Izuku snatched up both Shoto and Native and retreated to the ice fort that housed Ida. "Keep them safe," said Izuku. Shoto nodded and resealed the ice fort, all the while bolstering its walls. Turning around, Izuku stared down the now manic Stain. "You dare impede my mission," raged Stain. The hairs on Izuku's neck stood up at the feeling of bloodlust that Stain was emitting. "I need my full strength. I just hope that I bought enough time for the heroes to deal with the Nomu. Fuinjutsu, Kai." Izuku took his stance and with his reserves dwindling dangerously low he called upon one for all. "Even with this measly 3%, I swear I'll save everyone. // I arrived just in time to kick off a Nomu from Gran Torino and shove a Rinnegan through its chest. "Are you all right, old man?" I asked. I may have gotten old, but I'm not helpless," boy replied Gran Torino. I looked around at the burning buildings. Several hand seals later, several low-powered water bullets splashed on the burning buildings, quenching the fires. I turned to Gran Torino. "Where's Izuku?" I asked. "I left him back on the train, he should be safe," replied the old man. This stunned me. "You what?" "I thought that he was calling me for backup before heading off with you." Gran Torino looked at me, seemingly understanding what I'd done, and placed his head in his hands. "That damned brat, he's going to be the death of me," muttered Gran Torino. "Go and search for him." "I'll be there as soon as I can," I said. Gran Torino nodded and took off. I too vanished in a body flicker to the very top of a nearby building. From there I could clearly see a good deal of the city burning. I vanished once again and appeared next to a flying Nomu. Lightning coalesced around my hand and extended in a blade-like shape. The Raikiri swiftly cut through the wing of the Nomu. The creature screeched as it fell, but it was quickly silenced by being sliced to pieces by a wind-style vacuum web. I landed next to the bloodbath and saw Endeavor battling it out with the other two creatures. One had already lost both its legs and one arm was nothing but charred meat. The other one was tricky in that it had a chameleon function. A quick flash of chakra and my Sharingan powered up in my eyes. With these eyes I could clearly see the outline of the creature. Several hand seal later, a high-powered wind slash severed the creature in half. It fell to the ground screeching as it bled out. "Secure the villains!" I heard Endeavor yell as he turned and ran down the street. That somewhat confused me, but as I stretched out my chakra senses I couldn't help but feel one of Izuku's chakra transceivers stuck to the ground. From the charred paper fluttering around it, I could tell that he had used this seal as a possible way to restrain the villains, even if only for a moment. I couldn't dally. This situation needed to be dealt with quickly. // Izuku was breathing heavily as he took in the bleeding and injured form of the hero killer before him. The fight had been going for some time, and despite the fact that he could go all out now that the people he was protecting were safe, he didn't have the power necessary for any jutsu more chakra intensive than a replacement or a flash step. That and Stain would not go down. Every time they clashed, he would get injured worse and worse, and yet he would still get up. Not that Izuku was unharmed. His armor was all scratched and scuffed from when he had been grappling with Stain. It did its job, though, and kept Stain's blades from piercing his armor. So long as he didn't get a cut on his face, he was safe. Honestly, it was times like these that Izuku wished he had a helmet to protect himself. Just as he was preparing to engage the hero killer once again, he heard the sound of steps on pavement. We were commanded by Endeavor to provide assistance. "Wait, is that the hero killer, Stain?" asked one of the sidekicks. "Get back, he's still dangerous," said Izuku as he took his battle stance once again. It was then that the heroes noticed the 15-year-old in green and black armor who was looking like he had just ran a marathon. "Midoriya!" yelled out Gran Torino. This sparked recognition throughout the heroes assembled. This was the younger brother of Rikudou, the symbol of strength and the one who was proclaimed as the up-and-coming symbol of hope. "Even more fakes appear," said Stain. The attention once again turned to him. "Their foul hearts stain this society. They must be purged. Someone must be stained by the blood of these false heroes if we are to have a just society," yelled Stain. Just then, Endeavor appeared from the corner. "What are you just standing around over there?" he must have dash. "Endeavor! Faker of fakes, you must be purged," yelled Stain in a mad frenzy. His bloodlust was so terrible that everyone froze up, even Todoroki, Ida and Native who had come out of the ice fort when they heard the other heroes arrive. All froze, except Izuku. He was standing as firm as ever, even if his body was all but screaming at him to stop and rest. Not yet, he told himself, not until this battle is over. Stain broke out into a run, bellowing a harsh howl that served to terrify all who heard it, all except Izuku. Calling up the last dregs of his chakra, Izuku appeared in a flash step next to Stain, and with as much power from one for all as he could safely draw, he punched the hero killer in the face, sending him careening into the wall on a nearby building. "You're not purging anyone anymore." "Not on my watch," said Izuku. As the dust settled, the others could see Stain, bloodied and broken, as he sauntered forwards. It looked like it was taking all he had not to collapse. You are worthy. The only one other than All Might," yelled Stain. In that moment, like a missile from the sky, Rikudou arrived, Sharingan blazing and Chakra swirling around him in a veritable storm. But just like that, Stain fell to his knees and passed out. Those watching were shocked until Izuku too began to wobble and collapse, and he would have, were it not for Madara catching him before he touched the ground. Hello Japan! This is your host Setsuna Sakura. Today we have a special guest with us in the studio, the youngest hero in Hisatori and heir apparent to All Might himself, Rikudou. "Thank you for the opportunity, Miss Sakura," I said. "Oh, my, what a gentleman. Though, if you don't mind me asking, is it true that you were there in the Hosu incident yesterday?" "That's true, I managed to arrive in Hosu just in time to stop the Nomu. For those of you that remain unaware, yesterday evening there was an attack in Hosu City perpetrated by 5 criminals, of which only one survived. The pro-heroes, Endeavor and Rikudou, were the ones who took down these villains. On that note, how do you feel about the fact that you were responsible for the death of 2 people? I believe that I must clarify something first. The Nomu are not people, not anymore. From the remains of the 2 Nomu I fought against at the USJ attack a few weeks ago, we learned that the Nomu were manufactured. They did this by injecting innocents with various drugs meant to enhance their quirk factors and give them increased regeneration. Oh, my. This is terrible. Who would do such a thing? So far the evidence is still unconclusive, but rest assured that Might Tower will release a press statement the moment we uncover these dastardly villains. Well, we can all pray for your success. Remaining at the topic of Hosu, the biggest news circulating the internet these days is the act of vigilantism that your brother and the winner of the UA Sports Festival committed. This being said, while we do not condone such action, we are nonetheless thankful that he managed to not only survive, but bring the hero killer Stain to justice. I'm afraid to say that you have your facts wrong, Miss Sakura. Oh, how so? Before my brother leapt into the fray he did call me. Using my authority as a pro-hero, I allowed him to use his quirk in defense of his person and others. We did not know that, but still, isn't that the job of the hero supervising his internship? Or did it not occur to him that by bypassing normal protocol he could bring down accusations of nepotism upon your person? Gran Torino, the hero overseeing his internship, was engaged in combat with a Nomu at the time. My brother did the logical thing in calling me. Still, some of our viewers must be wondering if there truly was a need for your brother in the field. There was undoubtedly a need for him. Before Endeavor and I arrived, he was the first to confront the Nomu, even going so far as to expend a significant portion of his energy on restraints for not 1 but 3 of the Nomu, restraints that held on until Endeavor arrived, thus limiting the amount of destruction the Nomu caused. Furthermore, he was essential in saving not only the hero Native, but also his own classmate, the brother of Ingenium, Tenya Ida, from almost certain death at the hands of the hero killer Stain. Well, he seems like quite the upstanding citizen. It seems that he truly lives up to the expectation placed on him as a pillar of our society, even at such a young age. // The aftermath of the Hosu incident, as it's now called, was something I honestly had not expected. Between Stain's capture and the League of Villains attack on the city itself, I found little time to deal with the rumors that had been sprouting. It was in the early morning of the first day after the attack that the video was released. What video, you may be asking? Well, that's easy, the video that shared Stain's entire fucking backstory and shows live video for nearly 3 minutes of Izuku fighting Stain to a standstill to prevent him from getting to the very suspiciously placed ice fort behind him. Of course, that's not all. Whomever shot that video somehow managed to get audio of that fight, and with it Stain's proclamation that Izuku was the only one worthy of being called a true hero alongside All Might. You can see where this is going, can't you? I'm thankful that I had Izuku and his friends corralled in a hospital while I'm off running damage control. I mean, seriously people, a mass murderer was just captured and the first thing you talk about is whether or not you should punish the one that brought him to justice? I mean, come on, if it was me in that fight, Stain would have either gotten a Chidori to the chest or would have had his head caved in by a Rinnegan. Still, there won't be any repercussions. In fact, I'm heading over to the hospital room to brief Izuku and company on what was to happen. As I arrive at the room they were housed in, I see 2 police officers at the door. When they see me, they gulp. "Sir, this room is restricted," said one of the soon-to-be corpses. "And why is that?" "I have every right to visit my brother in the hospital," I said lightly. The man gulped. I could see sweat forming on his forehead. "Sorry sir, I can't allow you inside." I closed my eyes and opened them only now they possessed my activated blood-red Sharingan. "Let me give you some friendly advice. Do you think that you can keep me out of that room?" I asked. He shook his head nervously, and the second one behind him was trembling in fear. "I thought so. Now step aside before you do something rash and risk having an accident." The man had most likely never moved so fast in his entire life. I reached for the door handle and pulled it, slamming the door open and stepped in. I surveyed the scene. Izuku and Ida were obviously being chastised and Shoto appeared to be riled up and on the verge of a massive mistake. Meanwhile, Manuel and Gran Torino were standing to the side as spectators. I turned my Sharingan gaze on the big dog standing in the center of the room. From what I could read of his face, he thought he would have more time. Would you look at that, the chief of police came to visit. I mean, this is an occasion, but hardly one that would necessitate the stationing of guards outside this room, especially since they were given orders to keep even me out, wouldn't you agree? I asked. A small shock went through the room. "Pro Hero Rikudou, I'm terribly sorry about that misunderstanding," Wolf said the chief as he bowed. "Well, at least he knows how to be diplomatic with his betters. See to it that it does not happen again. Now, I believe that I had sorted out all the legalities of yesterday's events, so pray tell, what are you doing here?" "I do not recall giving you permission to interrogate my brother," I said while crossing my arms. "This was not an interrogation, merely some friendly advice for an up-and-coming hero," he said, still bowing. "Very well, see to it that such advice is given only when asked for. After all, we wouldn't want something to happen that would destabilize society, now would we?" I said, letting my presence leak out a bit. "Of course not, Rikudou." "I will take my leave now," said the dog whose fur was visibly shinier. "Go. The rest of you leave as well, and I need not say that this discussion never happened," I said. Gran Torino looked at me and held my gaze as the chief led a confused and frightened Manuel out of the room. Finally, Gran Torino broke the stare contest and left as well, closing the door in his wake. I closed my eyes and when I opened them, they were back to their original green. I turned to the 3 brats still in the room who were all looking at me with various degrees of shock. "Nai-san" began Izuku, but I cut him off. "Not now. First of all, I must address the moron in the room and only after that will I get to you 2 idiots," I said. I turned to the Ida scion. He was standing upright with his head bowed. "Do you realize what you did?" I asked. "Yes, please forgive me, sir. I was foolish and stupid," said Tenya as he bowed. "You know, I happen to know Ingenium," I began. He lifted his head to look at me, but remained bowed. One of his main motivations for his work was to make a better world for his little brother. In that he and I are rather similar. I paused, so I can only ask what manner of madness had possessed you to think you even had a 1% chance of taking on and beating a villain that your brother, someone with far more combat experience than every person in this room combined bar me, couldn't take? I am sorry. I was foolish and blinded by hate, please give me another chance." "Oh, don't worry about that, I made sure that your name came up only as a victim. But rest assured that the next time you do something as monumentally foolish as this, you will be expelled from UA faster than you can blink," I said. "I understand. Thank you for the opportunity," said Ida. "And as for you too," I said as I turned to them. Both of them looked uncomfortable being put under the spotlight. I sighed and pinched the bridge of my nose. I looked back up at them. I won't fault you for trying to protect your friend. This seemed to surprise them. Then, what about what the chief said? Asked Shoto. That man does good, but he overstepped his bounds when he approached you directly. To be honest, if it weren't for me and Endeavor, you all would be facing charges of vigilantism and would probably be expelled from UA altogether and forbidden from entering another hero course, I said. This seemed to strike a chord in them. Despite how Chief Tsurage may appear, he would have given you an out from this situation, if only for the fact that you are still good eggs, I said. I turned to Izuku. I'm proud of you, I said. Izuku blushed and looked away. You've grown exceptionally, and whatever fuinjutsu you used to keep the Nomu at bay was superbly useful. Well done indeed. I'm even more impressed that you managed to not only hold your own, but defeat Stain in hand-to-hand combat while your reserves were so low. Truly, I don't think that I'm mistaken when I say that you fought him mostly quirkless, I said. The other two were looking at Izuku in awe. I wasn't that good, Nai-san. I shook my head. Don't sell yourself short. What you did today is something that most heroes aside from the top 10 would have failed to do on their own. And Shoto. Shoto straightened up and looked at me. Your decision to use your ice to build a defensive structure to allow Izuku to fight at his full potential was very god. Excellent even, considering that many pro heroes would choose the glory of combat over actually saving civilians in danger, I said. He looked stunned at the praise I had given him, but nevertheless he accepted it. // Shigaraki was shaking. Nothing was going as planned, and worst of all, that brat, or more precisely that brat's brother, took down the hero killer. Everyone was talking about Stain and the brat's brother, and no one was talking about him. It pissed him off so badly that he couldn't even think straight. Calm yourself, Tomura Shigaraki, said Kurojiri as he cleaned some plates at the new hideout of the League of Villains. That brat, why is no one talking about me? All they seem to care about is the stupid hero killer and that brat. He and his brother bot piss me off, following All Might so closely. Don't worry, Tomura, came a voice from the monitor. Sensei, said the man-child with reverence. This was just the opening act, Tomura. It may seem like you have failed, but that is wrong. This is your beginning, Tomura Shigaraki, as the symbol of evil. // All for One leaned back in his chair as he finished the conversation with his protege. Truly, he was progressing nicely. My lord, if I may be so bold, why do you plan on moving against the Yakuza now? Asked the doctor. Well, I suppose you should know this. Some time ago I received word that they were in possession of a quirk that could restore me to my original form. That and the quirk of the one known as Overhaul would have made excellent addition to my collection, said the Lord of Evil. The doctor spluttered. But, my lord, why would you let such a valuable quirk in the hands of those lesser than you? You see, they would have made an excellent obstacle for Tomura after my final battle with All Might, but now I need to be able to cull the number of symbols to better pave the way for Tomura's ascension. // Katsuki was seething as he watched the news. All they ever talked about was how that damned Deku saved half and engine legs. These past few days had been a nightmare for him. He thought that the number 4 pro hero would help him better his quirk and hone his skills to better compete against Deku. It grated Katsuki to say this, but Izuku was strong. Easily the strongest in their entire year. After all, he did get the number 1 spot at the sports festival. Still, he couldn't get that line the old hermit said to him up on that mountain. You are no hero. I annoyed the hell out of him, but Katsuki wasn't blind. The things that Best Jeanist said he lacked, public appeal and whatnot, that wasn't him. He was the one that took down the villain, not a child caretaker. Sure, he could save people and shit, but that's not the things he excelled at. All he could do was grit his teeth and bear it. He only had a few more days until he was finally out of here. // I couldn't help but collapse on the couch when I got home. Nissan? Are you okay? Asked a concerned Izuku. Yeah, sure, just tired. I haven't slept in 3 days, I said. What? How could you be so irresponsible, Nai-san? You know that sleep deprivation leads to stupid mistakes, yelled Izuku, scandalized. I turned my head just enough so that I could see his face and let a small grin show. With chakra I can mitigate the effects, the only problem is that I crash after I let go of the chakra that I have sustaining me. This seemed to calm Izuku down, though I did see him mutter something under his breath, most likely about idiot big brothers and such. Without even so much as a word, he went into the kitchen and began heating up some food. Now that I think about it, I am hungry. Slowly, I pulled myself up in a more dignified position as Izuku came back with food for the both of us. Thanks, I said. No problem, Nai-san. We ate in silence for a while. Hey, Nai-san. Did Stain's ideals, did his words have any meaning, or were they just an empty ideal? Asked Izuku. I turned to him. What brought this on? I asked. Well, it's just that he made so much sense, you know? And I don't know if it's right to agree with the ideals of a serial killer. I mean, he is a villain after all, said Izuku. I remained silent for a while, digesting this. I had honestly not expected Izuku to be this shaken by his experience. Obviously, I did expect some form of doubt, but not something so profound. Was he even right? Asked Izuku. I'm sorry? Was he even right to place me at the same level as All Might himself? Ah, I see. Damn you, All Might, and the burden you placed upon my family. Izuku, do you remember what All Might told us after the USJ, about how One for All came to be? He nodded. Good things can come from anywhere, and good people are much the same. Unfortunately, the same is true for the other end of the spectrum. There are some people that just want to see the world burn and would do anything to make this twisted reality happen. Stain and his followers are anarchists pure and simple. They can't or rather won't see the greater implications of their actions, the lives they ruin and the devastation they inflict on society as a whole, I said. But what about what Stain said? I looked through the files on Project Damocles and I know about all the corruption of the hero system, so isn't Stain even slightly right? Asked Izuku. I was a bit surprised. Project Damocles is one of my countermeasures against heroes. It stands as a literal sword hanging by a thread ready to decapitate hero society by exposing all the corruption in the HPSC and the top ranks of the heroes. I sighed and leaned back, setting down my food and looking straight at Izuku. He's right, I said. Izuku looked stunned to hear me say that. If the world was fair and normal, you and I would have never been in the situation we are now. By pre-Quirk world standards, we are child soldiers fighting in a war we should have no business fighting in. Stain is right that heroes are corrupt. Heck, in the past 3 months I took down more than 50 crime dens by investigating heroes. What? Asked Izuku, shocked. Did you think that every hero is like your friends in UA? Even as they are now, your first-year friends are more powerful than 50% of heroes in Japan. How do you expect them to justify their salary without a constant supply of villains? I said. But that's wrong, yelled Izuku, outraged. Of course it is, but they don't care. Most of these heroes gravitate towards poor neighborhoods where crime is still rampant. They don't have the strength or motivations to clean out these pockets of villains, so they cut a deal with them so that they don't get killed. I know it pains you to hear this, but just like One for All came from All for One, so did heroes spawn from villains. And just like the battle between the two brother quirks, the fight between heroes and villains grows more dangerous with each passing generation. In this fight, you and I are weapons, nothing more, I said. Izuku looked sad. It was to be expected. I had, after all, just shattered his worldview. So, it's all useless? Me becoming a hero? Asked Izuku. I wouldn't say that, you still have a purpose, but we shouldn't fight to uphold this frankly broken society, but change it so that the next generation would not have to know the terror of a villain attack, I said. And All Might, where does he stand in all this? Asked Izuku. I paused for a bit. That's the heart of the issue, isn't it? All Might is the literal symbol of the current era, and someone that Izuku not only looks up to, but admires to a frankly astonishing degree. All Might is just like you. He's just someone that wants to help people, but in his hubris he created the problems we face today. That is why I took up the mantle of symbol to keep down the devastation that All Might's fall will certainly produce, I said. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kaioshin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my P at Trian. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Ben Phillips.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.